It all came down to a feeling. Not a business plan, not a demographic study. Just a feeling in his gut. By 1972, that was about the only thing he had left that was truly his own. Everything else was managed. Everything was scheduled, packaged, and sold. His life was a product. He was the most famous man in the world, and maybe the loneliest. He lived in a gilded cage built of gold records and movie contracts, and the man who held the key was his manager. To understand why he fought for this one song, you have to understand the cage. You have to understand the man who built it. His manager, a man known to everyone as the Colonel, was not a music man. He was a carnival man. He knew how to sell a ticket. He knew how to draw a crowd. He knew how to count the money. Music was just part of the act. It was the noise the main attraction made. The Colonel's philosophy was simple, never change a winning formula, and by the early 70s, the formula was set in stone. The formula was Las Vegas, huge hotels, sold-out showrooms, 2 shows a night. The audience was older now. They weren't the screaming teenagers from the 50s. They were tourists with money to spend. They wanted a nice dinner and a comfortable show. They wanted the legend, but a safe version of the legend, so the music had to be safe. It was a diet of big, emotional ballads. Grand, sweeping songs that could fill a showroom. Songs that were respectable. He would stand on stage, a god in a white jumpsuit, and sing about lost love and tender memories. He sang them well. He was a professional. He could sing anything and make it sound good. But his heart wasn't always in it. The other part of the formula was the movie soundtrack. The movies themselves had become a joke. Silly plots, beautiful locations, and a handful of forgettable songs. The songs were often written by the same group of people, publishers the Colonel had deals with. This was crucial. The Colonel wasn't just selling the singer, he was selling the whole package. He got a piece of the music publishing, he got a piece of the merchandise, he got a piece of everything. A new rock and roll song from some unknown writer. There was no angle in that for him. It was just a song. And to the Colonel, a thing that was just a song was a waste of time. This was the world Elvis lived in. He would wake up in the afternoon, his friends, his Memphis Mafia, would be there. They'd kill time, ride golf carts, watch movies, and then it was time to work. Put on the jumpsuit, go on stage, sing the ballads, tell a few jokes, maybe do some karate moves. Go back to the penthouse suite. Do it all again the next day. He was bored. You could see it in his eyes some nights. He was a man who had changed the world with a sneer and a wiggle of his hips, and now he was a living monument. People came to see the monument, not the man. He was trapped in his own image. He still loved music, the real stuff. Late at night, he would listen to the music that moved him. He listened to gospel, he listened to the blues, he listened to R&B, he knew what was happening on the radio. He heard the new sounds, the new energy, he heard guitars that were loud and drums that were heavy. He heard singers who were letting it all go, and then he'd have to go into the studio and record another song about a puppy or a pretty sunset. His producer, a man named Felton Jarvis, saw the frustration. Felton was a good producer. He wanted to make great records, but he also had to answer to the Colonel and the record label RCA. They all wanted the same thing: safe, predictable, profitable. So Felton was always on the lookout for a great song. Not just a good song, but a great one. A song that could light a fire under his star. One day, a demo tape came in. It was from a songwriter named Dennis Lind. The song was different. It wasn't a ballad, it wasn't a gentle country tune, it was a rocker. It started with a punch. A tough, gritty guitar riff. Then the bass and drums kicked in with a relentless driving beat. It was a train coming down the track, it had swagger, it was pure simple, raw rock and roll. The lyrics weren't deep, they were about a feeling. A physical feeling. A love that was so intense it felt like a fever. It was hot, it was urgent. Felton knew. This was the one, this was the spark. He brought the song to Elvis. Elvis heard it. And for the first time in a long time, he came alive. He didn't just hear a song, he heard an escape route, he heard the music he grew up on, he heard the energy of Sun Records in Memphis, he heard the sound of a Saturday night. He heard something real. This wasn't a song for a Vegas showroom full of tourists. This was a song for a jukebox in a roadside bar. This was a song to be played loud in a fast car. He told Felton, I'm cutting that. The word got back to the Colonel. He heard the demo. He hated it. His reasons were purely business. First, the songwriter was an outsider. The Colonel didn't have a piece of his publishing. That was a big problem. Why record a song that only makes money for the record company and the writer? The Colonel wanted songs from his own stable, where he could double dip. Second, the sound. It was too aggressive, too loud. It was rock and roll. The Colonel had spent years trying to move his client away from that image. He had worked hard to make him a family-friendly entertainer, a balladeer, a movie star. This song was a step backward. It was the old Elvis, the dangerous Elvis. The Colonel thought that ship had sailed. He thought his audience had grown up and didn't want that anymore. He saw it as a risk to the brand he had so carefully constructed. Third, it just wasn't a ballad. The Colonel believed in a simple equation. Ballads equaled big sales. They were timeless. They appealed to the widest possible audience. A fast rock song might be a quick hit, but it wouldn't have the staying power. It was a novelty, it was beneath his star, so the Colonel told Elvis no. He told the record label no. This was not the right song, it was a mistake. Find something else. Find a nice ballad. This was the moment of truth. For years, Elvis had mostly gone along with the program. He complained to his friends, he grumbled in private, but when it came time to work, he did what the Colonel wanted. The Colonel had made him rich beyond his wildest dreams. The Colonel handled the business. Elvis was the artist. That was the deal. But this was different. This wasn't just about a business decision. It was personal. That song had connected with him. It was a lifeline. He was drowning in schmaltz and safe and boring music. This song was a gasp of fresh air. It was a reminder of who he used to be and who he still was underneath the jumpsuit and the jewelry. He insisted. This was rare. He didn't often defy the Colonel so directly, but on this he would not budge. He told Felton to book the studio time. He told the band to learn the song. He was going to record it, with or without the Colonel's blessing. The recording session took place in March of 1972 at RCA's Studio C in Hollywood. The atmosphere was different. When Elvis was uninspired, the sessions could be a real drag. He would lose interest, fool around, and do take after take without any real conviction. The musicians would just go through the motions. Not this time. He was on fire. He was engaged, he was leading the band, he loved the riff, he loved the beat. Now, he stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by his musicians, the guys in his TCB band. James Burton on lead guitar, Ronnie Tutt on drums, Jerry Sheff on bass, Glenn D. Hardin on piano. These were some of the best musicians in the world. They could play anything. And they loved to rock. They were just as tired of the slow ballads as he was. They kicked into the song, and it exploded. Ronnie Tutt's drumming is a force of nature. It's not just keeping time, it's pushing the song forward with every beat. Jerry Sheff's bass line is a constant thumping pulse. It's the heartbeat of the track. And James Burton, the master, laid down a guitar part that was both tough and catchy. And then there was Elvis. His voice. He wasn't crooning, he wasn't being gentle. He was attacking the song. You can hear the joy in his performance, he's having fun. He pushes his voice, lets it get a little rough around the edges. When he sings that his temperature's rising, you believe him. He's not just singing the words, he's feeling them. He throws in little ad-libs, little whoops and hollers. It's the sound of a man being set free. They did take after take, not because they couldn't get it right, but because they were having such a good time playing it. The energy was electric. Everyone in the studio knew they were capturing something special. This wasn't just another track to fill out an album. This was a hit. This was the real thing. The Colonel still wasn't convinced. The record was made, but he could still try to bury it. He could push for it to be an album track or a B-side to a Sappho ballad. He still saw it as a mistake. It didn't fit the plan, but the momentum was too strong. The people at RCA who heard it knew what they had. They knew this was a smash hit waiting to happen. It was undeniable. Reluctantly, the decision was made to release it as a single. It came out in the summer of 1972. It shot up the charts. It was a massive worldwide hit. It was his biggest single in years. It was everywhere. On the radio, on jukeboxes, at parties. People loved it. The old fans loved it because it was a return to his roots. New, younger fans loved it because it was just a great, powerful rock song that sounded fantastic on the radio. It proved Elvis right, and it proved the Colonel wrong. The audience hadn't outgrown rock and roll. He hadn't outgrown rock and roll. He just needed the right song. This one song re-energized his career, if only for a moment. It put him back on the pop charts in a big way. It gave his live shows a much-needed shot of adrenaline. When he performed it on stage, the place would erupt. He would kick and move, sweating, smiling a real smile. He was the king of rock and roll again, not just the king of Vegas. So why did he insist? Why did he fight his manager, the man who controlled every aspect of his career, over this one song? It wasn't about the money, it wasn't about chart positions, it was about his soul. He was an artist, and an artist needs to create. An artist needs to feel something. For too long, he had been a product. He had been singing songs that were chosen for him based on business deals and marketing strategies. They were safe choices that were slowly killing his spirit. This song was dangerous. It was raw, it was alive, and he needed to feel alive. It was a rebellion, a small one, but a significant one. It was a moment where the man inside the monument broke through the stone. He was reminding the Colonel, and the world, and maybe even himself, who he really was. He was the boy from Memphis who had shaken up the world. He was a rock and roller. That song was his declaration of independence. It was a brief, brilliant flash of defiance. A moment when he took back control, not of his business, but of his art. It became his last great, undeniable top 10 hit in America. A final, fiery statement from a king who, for a moment, refused to be a prisoner on his own throne. And that's why he fought for it. That's the story of Burning Love.